Imagine that all of human history is not chaos, not randomness, not a collection of strange events, but something planned. Because sometimes history produces coincidences so insane that they sound like a bad Hollywood script. 2 presidents assassinated exactly 100 years apart. A book that predicted the sinking of the Titanic before it was even built. A person who survived multiple ship disasters, including the Titanic. Empires collapsing on the same dates, centuries apart. Mysterious numbers, repeating names, symbols, and events that feel as if history rhymes. Today we are diving into the craziest historical coincidences that many people believe were not coincidences at all. And the deeper we go, the scarier it becomes. The Curse of Lincoln and Kennedy. In 1860, Abraham Lincoln became President of the United States. Exactly 100 years later, in 1960, John Kennedy became president, and then something absolutely abnormal begins. Both were killed by a shot to the head, both on a Friday, both in the presence of their wives. After Lincoln, the next president was Andrew Johnson. After Kennedy, Lyndon Johnson. And here comes the creepiest part. Andrew Johnson was born in 1808. Lyndon Johnson in 1908. Lincoln's assassin, John Wilkes Booth, was born in 1839. Lee Harvey Oswald in 1939. Booth fled from a theater and was caught in a warehouse. Oswald fired from a warehouse and was caught in a theater, and both were killed before trial. Of course, part of this is just beautiful statistics, but the problem is, there are way too many beautiful statistics like this in history. The book that predicted the Titanic. In 1898, writer Morgan Robertson released a novel. Its title was Futility. The book described the largest ship in the world. Its name? Titan. It was considered unsinkable. There were not enough lifeboats on board, and it collided with an iceberg in the North Atlantic in April. 14 years later, the real Titanic repeated almost everything word for word. Even the sizes of the ships were disturbingly similar. And this is not some mystical legend. The book really existed before the disaster. And that raises a question. What was it? An unbelievable prediction? Pure coincidence? Or did the author simply understand very well where shipbuilding technology of that era was heading? Because sometimes prophecies are not magic, but attentiveness. The woman who couldn't drown. There was a woman named Violet Jessup. She was called Miss Unsinkable, and it sounds like a legend. But she was a real person. She worked as a stewardess on ocean liners, and she survived. The collision of the liner Olympic, the Titanic disaster, and even the explosion of Britannic. 3 disasters. 3. Any one of them alone would have made a person part of history. But she survived all of them. When the Titanic was sinking, she was ordered to get into a lifeboat. And before lowering it into the water, an officer handed her a baby. After the rescue, a woman approached her, silently took the child, and disappeared. She never saw them again. It sounds like a movie scene, but it was documented. Sometimes history is stranger than fiction. The Curse of Tamerlane. In 1941, Soviet archaeologists opened the tomb of the great conqueror Tamerlane. On the tomb was an inscription: "Whoever disturbs me will unleash an invader more terrible than I." The scientists opened the tomb, and 2 days later, Hitler launched the invasion of the Soviet Union. Operation Barbarossa, the bloodiest front in human history, millions of deaths, and the scariest part? In 1942, Tamerlane's remains were reburied according to Muslim traditions, and literally shortly after that, The turning point of the war began. Stalingrad. Of course, this may be a coincidence, but even Soviet generals were whispering about the curse back then. Because sometimes people fear not the facts, but how perfectly they fit together. The unsinkable man of 3 disasters. There was another real person. His name was Archibald Gracie. He survived the Titanic and wrote a book about the disaster, but the problem was, his book was released literally shortly before his death. He never truly recovered from the hypothermia and died several months later. And now, the creepiest part. One of the Titanic passengers said before boarding, "This ship will be a floating coffin," and refused to board. His friends laughed at him. All of them died. The strange repetition of empires. The Roman Empire did not fall in a single day, but historians noticed a strange pattern. Many great empires went through the same stages: luxury, overindulgence, political chaos, loss of trust, a culture obsessed with entertainment, economic problems, and then collapse. Rome, the Spanish Empire, the British Empire, even some modern states suspiciously repeat this cycle. And that is what frightens historians, because the scariest coincidence in history is that people never learn. 2 brothers and 1 road. In 1975, a boy in Bermuda was struck by a taxi driver. A tragic accident. A year later, on the same moped, on the same road, the boy's brother was hit by the same taxi driver, in the same car, and with the same passenger inside. This is considered one of the most statistically impossible coincidences in history. And when you hear something like this, you begin to doubt that reality functions normally. The number 27. There is a strange phenomenon in the music world. It is called the 27 Club. Many iconic musicians died at the age of 27. Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse. Of course, mathematicians explain this through statistics. Musicians often live on the edge, but the human brain hates chaos, so we search for patterns, even where there may be none. Sometimes a coincidence is just a coincidence, and sometimes it feels far too symbolic. Pharaohs, curses, and deaths. When Tutankhamun's tomb was opened, newspapers exploded with headlines. The Pharaoh's curse, because people connected to the excavation began to die. 1, from blood poisoning. Another, from a mysterious illness. Another, under strange circumstances. The press turned it into a mystical horror story. But later, scientists suggested ancient tombs may have contained dangerous fungi and bacteria. And this is where it gets most interesting. Most mystical stories have rational explanations, but people still want to believe in something greater, because dry truth never sounds as interesting as a curse. Can history repeat itself? There is a theory that history moves in cycles: economic collapses, wars, the rise of empires, technological revolutions. All of this has happened before, and maybe it is happening right now. Because the more you study history, the more you notice rhymes. Not copies, but rhymes. People change clothes, technologies, languages, but fears remain the same. Greed remains the same. Ambition remains the same. And that is why the craziest coincidences in history may not be magic at all, but simply the result of humanity constantly repeating itself. Maybe all of these stories are just coincidences. Maybe the human brain simply searches for meaning in chaos. But there is one problem. Sometimes coincidences seem so precise that you begin to doubt. Maybe history is not a straight line. Maybe it is a cycle. Maybe humanity walks in circles. And the scariest part is that right now, We may already be living inside another coincidence that people in the future will study in textbooks. If this video surprised you, look around carefully, because history may already be repeating itself again. And before you leave, if this video made you question reality even for a moment, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because the deeper we dive into history, the stranger it becomes. Leave a like if at least one of these coincidences genuinely shocked you. And write in the comments, which story disturbed you the most? And do you believe these were really just coincidences? Maybe the next terrifying pattern in history will be discovered by someone in the comments section. See you in the next video.